Please let us receive the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the champion of the struggle of the liberation of our people, Minister Louis Farrakhan. Please let us receive him.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God to whom all praise is due, the Lord of the worlds, the finder of us who were lost, and the life giver to us who were mentally and spiritually dead in the grave of ignorance. Allah, the creator of all things, the sender of all prophets, the revealer of all truth, the one God, and beside him there is no God. I give praise and thanks to Allah over and over again for all of his prophets, from Abraham to Muhammad the last. I give praise and thanks to Allah for raising up in our midst a divine leader, teacher, and guide, the one that the world has been looking for, the Messiah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I greet you with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. My dear brothers and sisters, it is a great honor and privilege for me again to have the opportunity to stand before you, to speak to you words of wisdom and guidance and comfort from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. To all those who are listening by a national telephone hookup in nearly 60 cities throughout America, we are grateful for your presence and for your attention. We do not wish to keep you long, but there are some very important truths that we wish to share with you. Before we begin our lecture, we want to say that we are saddened this week to learn of the passing of our brother Huey Newton. A young man who heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in San Francisco, California, and began some years later to formulate the Black Panther Party. Young Huey Newton, a brilliant, sincere and committed young man to the struggle of liberation of the oppressed, particularly the oppressed black man and woman of America, felt that black people were under assault, and being under assault and the Constitution giving American citizens the right to bear arms, Huey Newton, a student also of the progressive teachings of Mao Zedong and other great progressive strugglers for justice in the world, felt that power emerged from the barrel of a gun. And so he armed his young, dedicated followers not for aggressive action, but that black people may be able to defend themselves. The enemy used many tricks, many plots, many plans to disrupt, to dismantle, to discredit the Black Panther Party, and ultimately to break its leadership under many, many false charges. Huey Newton had to flee the country to find refuge in Cuba, where he stayed many years and returned to the United States to face jail. Huey Newton is one more nail in the coffin of the wicked. His death nor his life was not in vain. Also, in the last few weeks, we lost a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressman Mickey Leland, under circumstances that are at best strange. We are witnessing an assault on black leadership, the like of which we have never witnessed since the time of Reconstruction, when black men were in the Congress, in the Senate. Some had gotten as high as lieutenant governor. But white folk were so distraught that some form or semblance of power was coming to black people, that they destroyed all of those gains. And then the Night Riders and the Ku Klux Klan began to destroy black men and women at will. We are witnessing all of the negative aspects of our sojourn in America coming to bear at a peculiar and particular time. I want you to pay very good attention to what I am about to say to you. If you're tired, go get a little cold water on your faces, because if you sleep too much, you may die in your sleep. J. Edgar Hoover, the former head of the FBI, one of the most powerful men in government, who served many presidents and served many presidents because many presidents could not get rid of him, because he knew about them that which they didn't think he knew. He used the FBI to gather information on most of the elected officials, judges, etc., so that he became the silent power in America. J. Edgar Hoover was what we would call a fierce American. I believe he loved America dearly and was one of those kinds of white men that never believed that America was for black people, brown people, Asian people, Arab people, or Native American people. So J. Edgar Hoover, on the watch for communists, on the watch for any member of a quote-unquote minority group that could rise up to bring people and money together and plans and programs for the advancement of the people. J. Edgar Hoover and the Federal Bureau of Investigation was used to undermine, to disrupt, to discredit, to destroy black leaders, black movement, Indian leaders, Indian movement, Hispanic leaders, Hispanic movement, communist leaders, communist movement, anything that J. Edgar Hoover felt was a threat. The greatest threat that he felt was that among black people in America, there would arise one who would unite, pull together all nationalist thinking men and women, and thereby create a thrust for liberation that could undermine the basic philosophy and direction of white America. So J. Edgar Hoover was on the lookout for any leader or leaders who wanted to organize people for the purpose of liberation. The NAACP, the oldest civil rights organization, came under intense scrutiny. The Urban League. Then in the late 50s and 60s, CORE, SNCC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But of course, before that, Mr. Hoover watched Marcus Garvey with great care. He watched Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple with great care. Noble Drew Ali died under mysterious circumstances. Marcus Garvey's movement was infiltrated, undermined. Mr. Garvey lied upon, brought to court, sentenced to prison on trumped-up charges, then exiled out of the United States or deported, dying in England a broken man. But on the inside of America, every time God gave us a voice, the government of the United States moved to destroy, undermine, and discredit that voice. From Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey on the slave plantations, Gabriel Prosser, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington. You call the roll, and every time you call the roll, the U.S. government was always there to make sure that we were deprived of leadership that white people did not put their stamp of approval on. You must understand, brothers and sisters. All praise is due to Allah. You must understand, brothers and sisters, the very deep fear in the government of the United States of the potential of black people in America to become unified and powerful and change the direction of this country and the world. They never intended for us to come into that kind of power. I think it was George Washington who reminded them that before too many years passed over their heads, that the Negro, as he called us, would become a most troublesome species of property. At one time, we were not as troublesome as George Washington felt we would ultimately become. They thought they had removed every avenue by which knowledge or light or intelligence could come to the mind of a slave. But God, who originated light in the heavens, would not allow his people to walk totally and completely in darkness. So every few years somebody would rise up with light, with knowledge. So white people were always on the alert, walking their post in a perfect manner, taking charge of their property and making sure that nothing came into view that would make you a thinking black man and woman and take you away from white people as a useful piece of property. I don't say these things out of the spirit of hatred. I say these things as a background for what I'm about to charge the United States government with. J. Edgar Hoover was deeply concerned more with black people than with the Native Americans, more with black people than with the Hispanics, more with black people than any other racial or ethnic minority in this country. Because J. Edgar Hoover knew that if you ever awakened and linked up with your people in Central America, South America, the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, the Isles of the Pacific, that you would recognize almost overnight that you outnumbered white people 11 to 1. And then you would no longer see yourselves as a minority, but you would become the majority. And if there were any hookup between black America, black Africa, where what we had learned in the colleges and universities of America could be applied here and in Africa and in the Caribbean, that we would come into control of the vast mineral resources of Africa, that America must have under her control if she's going to be a power in the 21st century. So they had to have a plan that would keep us divided among ourselves. They had to have a plan to keep us separated from Africa, separated from our brothers in the Caribbean and in the Isles of the Pacific and around the world. They never wanted Islam among black people in America. George Washington made it clear. He himself, a Muslim son, a Muslim Shriner, did not want any Islam in America among black people, because George Washington knew that Islam is a unifying force. Islam would take fear out of the heart of the black man and woman. Islam would give us the true knowledge of the true God. And by giving us that knowledge, when we call on that God, we would get an answer to our prayers. So whenever any Muslim came to North America, the object was keep that Muslim away from black people. They kept our African brothers separated from us and us from them. They have been working night and day on the problem of your rise. When you sleep, they work, they think, they plan against your rise. But one day, in 1930, a man showed up in the city of Detroit. His name, one Master Farad Muhammad. Some of you may call him Professor. He's that. Some may call him Master. He's that. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he said, I am Mahdi. I am the self-guided one who came to guide you to the right path that you may be successful. Before the coming of Master Farad Muhammad, we hit and missed. We hit and missed. But one had come with a profound knowledge of the enemy and a profound knowledge of us and a profound knowledge of all things. I didn't say some things. I said all things. That he could put us at the center of knowledge. Not on the periphery of knowledge, not on the spokes of knowledge, but right at the core of knowledge, that what he taught us would allow us to relate to any discipline, any knowledge that could ever be revealed or had ever been discovered, and we would not be on the branch of it, we would be at the root of that knowledge. A wise man. That man searched among us for one that he knew had the right heart for you and me, that had the right spirit and desire to see the people free at any cost. And so Master Farad Muhammad chose a Georgia-born black man who was named at the time Elijah Poole. And Master Farad Muhammad called him Kareem, which was one of the names of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Kareem. He was also named El-Amin. I'm talking now of the Prophet Muhammad of Arabia, peace be upon him. Why did Master Farad Muhammad name Elijah Muhammad these beautiful names, and then on his time of departure he changed his name and called him Muhammad? He gave him 104 books to study. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the best book that he gave him to study was the Quran. But every one of those 104 books had some aspect in it of the life of Prophet Muhammad of Arabia, peace be upon him. Why did Elijah Muhammad have to study the life of Prophet Muhammad of Arabia? Why did he have to know every nuance of that man's great and historic life, a life that revolutionized the entire world? Why did Master Farad Muhammad make his student a student of the life of Prophet Muhammad of Arabia? It is because Arabia, the sandy desert of Arabia, was to be a sign of the spiritual desert of America. I want you to listen to me good. Hear me well. Arabia was to be a sign of a greater desert. The tribes of Arabia were to be a sign of a greater tribalism. The period of Jahiliyyah or ignorance was to be a sign of a greater ignorance. The power of the Quraysh was to be a sign of a greater power, in fact, the greatest power that had ever been on the earth in the last 6,000 years. The power of America to keep black folk divided, suppressed, and destroyed as a people. But as Elijah Muhammad went in and out of the Congressional Library of Washington studying the history of Prophet Muhammad and others, he was learning the price that he had to pay for our deliverance. Master Farad Muhammad was jailed in Detroit, and when he was jailed, he sent for Elijah Muhammad. He didn't have to suffer himself to go to jail, but he wanted to make a demonstration for his servant that if he, the master, could go to jail, then surely the servant who follows the master would not be afraid to go to jail for the deliverance of a people. So he sent for Elijah, and Elijah would get him out of jail. And every time he sent for Elijah to get him out of jail, Elijah did not know that one day soon he would go to jail. Go to jail for what? Was he a criminal? Was he a robber? Was he a thief? His crime was that he knew the truth. His crime was he was unafraid to speak the truth. His crime was that he knew how to unlock the frozen minds of black men and women. His crime was he knew America. He knew the white man. He knew the Quran. He knew the Bible. He knew the principles and laws that govern the universe. He knew what he knew. And he knew what he had to do to deliver us. The white man is not afraid of you because you're fat, or because you're skinny, or because you're light, or because you're dark, or because you have a PhD or a master's degree or no degree. He's afraid when you know the truth. For he says in the scripture, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It is the truth that would upset the white man's plan to keep the black man as a piece of property. It is the truth that will arise a dead nation by the tens and hundreds of thousands, yea, into the millions. It is the truth that will unite black people in a bond of brotherly love and friendship. It is this truth that the enemy knew was coming. And he knew that when it came, it was his bounden duty to fight against that truth and the bearer of that truth. That even if you heard it and loved it by skillful manipulation, his design was to turn everyone that would go toward the truth away from the truth, because the truth is our salvation, and any man that can turn you away from the truth pulls you back into the net of your enemy. The biggest problem of the third world is America. Not the poor American people, but the power of the government of America and her policies. This is the #1 problem of the third world, for no third world country can go free unless America opens the door for them. Anything that will disturb the head of the serpent will fix his tail. You can take that any way you want to. So whoever would come to you to teach you truth is considered an enemy of the government and the program of white people. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you actively pursue truth, then they equally and oppositely oppose you in telling the truth. You understand? All praise is due to Allah. I wondered why Master Farad Muhammad gave him the Quran. It is because the Quran is the book and the guidance that will free the entire nation of people, and it will free the world if it is properly understood. In the 3rd chapter of the Quran, called the family of Imran, Allah says in the Quran that the angels spoke to Mary and said, Mary, surely Allah gives you good news with a word from Him of one whose name is the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, worthy of regard in this world and the hereafter, and of those who are drawn nigh to Allah. He will speak to the people when in the cradle and when of old age, and he will be of the good ones. And Mary said, my Lord, how can I have a son, and man has not yet touched me? She couldn't have a son if a man had not yet touched her. Allah said, even so, Allah creates what He pleases. When He decrees a matter, He only says to it, be, and it is. Now, Allah has decreed that a woman is going to bear a child who is named the Messiah. Messiah is not a name as John and Joe or Henry and Frank. Messiah is a title that specifies a specific work that a human being will do that will testify to the presence of Allah. I want you to listen. In the Quran, it says, and He, meaning Allah, will teach him, who? The Messiah, the book and the wisdom, the Torah and the gospel. Stop right there. I want you to listen, please. If this were talking about Jesus 2,000 years ago, it would have said He would teach him the Torah and the gospel. For the Torah preceded Jesus, and Jesus brought the gospel. But this Quran said He will teach him the book. Not a book,
the book. When you use the definite article, you are talking about a criterion book, a book that is the measurement of truth. That book is the Quran. He will teach the Messiah the book and the wisdom. Stop right there. If he teaches him the book, what is the wisdom? Notice how the verse starts. It starts from the last revelation going backward. He will teach him the book, the wisdom, the Torah, and the gospel. What other books are there? If you know the Quran, you know all the books. Come on. Because the Quran is the compilation of all of the best scriptures revealed to any and all prophets anywhere at any time on the earth. The best of all of their teachings is compiled in the book. But the wisdom is the key to unlock the book. To give you the book and not the wisdom is to leave you just like you are. Watch out now. What do you mean to give you the book and not the wisdom is to leave you as you are? Well, how are you? Don't tell me you're fine. That's a lie. You got the Quran, but you're not fine. You got the Torah, the Old Testament, but you're not fine. You Christians got the New Testament, but you're not fine. You in a bad shape no matter what book you got because you don't have the wisdom of the book. Listen, you are. Y'all all right? Bear with me a few more minutes. Now, he says, after teaching him the book and the wisdom. Now look, if you read this Quran, this is some powerful book. Those of you who've never read it, you owe yourself a treat. This book, Quran, has teaching in it for the uninitiated, for the people of very little or no knowledge. There's a lot of truth in it for you and me. But then it has teachings for the learned, for the wise, and for those skilled in understanding. This Quran can talk to the most ignorant, but it can talk to the most profoundly wise. But even the most profoundly wise who have studied this book do not understand many things about this book. Come on. Come on now, let's agree. The scholars themselves admit that there are things in the Quran that they just do not understand. Some of them have made an attempt to give us their tafsir, their meaning, their understanding. But it misses the mark. For Allah says in the Quran that those firmly rooted in knowledge say, we believe in it, all of it is from Allah. But the Quran says none knows its interpretation but Allah. I'm going to say that again. None, not possibly some, The Quran says none knows its interpretation but Allah. And those firmly rooted in knowledge say, we believe in it. They don't know it, they believe in it. All of it is from Allah. Now, if Allah raises one and teaches one the book, to teach means to explain. Reveal is not the word used. To reveal the book is to say this. But to teach the book is to explain the book and the power and the wisdom germane in every word. Listen. Allah says, after he teaches him the book and the wisdom, the Torah and the gospel, it says, and make him a messenger. Listen to the words. Make him a messenger. It didn't say make him a prophet, because the prophets had already prophesied in the book, the wisdom and the Torah, the gospel. Huh? He didn't say make him a prophet. He said make him a messenger to the children of Israel. Well, who is that? Make him a messenger to the Jews? No. If he was coming to the Jews would not plan against him. The Jews now have rejected Jesus. They don't see Jesus as the Messiah. They're still looking for him. Make him a messenger to the children of Israel. Israel here represents the white race, particularly America. Not that little fellow over there that they call Israel. If I had time, I don't have time, but I have $1. When you get time, take some time. Take $1 and look at the seal of the president, which is on the back of the dollar. Has 13 stars, which they say represent the 13 original colonies. If you tie these stars together, you get a Star of David. Israel. And who are the children of Israel? Why didn't he say, make him a messenger to Israel? But it said, make him a messenger to the children of Israel. I don't want to waste a lot of time. Israel here represents the white man. The preposition of here means those in the possession of the white man who don't belong to the white man and are the children under the white man. Take it or let it alone. Y'all all right? Yes, sir. Bear with me a few more minutes. Look at you. You're the children of white folks. You're certainly not the children of your original fathers. Your father don't produce nothing look like this. Look at this mess. Look at this mess that's sitting in front of me. Didn't know God create nothing like this. This is the white man's making. He made you niggers. He made you as you are. You can't put this on God. You are not God's children. You are the white man's children. And that's why you wear the white man's name. Johnson, come on, Johnson. Jones. Come on, Smith, O'Reilly, Culpeper, Washington. Come on, children of white people. He's your father. You don't reflect God, you reflect the white man. Niggers are what white people made. Negroes are what white people made. God made a man. Niggers are what white folk made. No men among us. God said he made man. Who unmade you as a man? Same old cracker that you've given your allegiance to. Same old enemy that you are fighting for and dying for. Who made you the kind of woman that you are? God didn't make this. This is an ugly mess that the white man made. He makes nigger women. He makes tramps and harlots. He makes lesbians and faggots. He makes Toms and traitors. God don't make this. You are not the product of God. Sitting up in the mosque, sitting up in the church, in the temple and in the synagogue, but you are not the sons of Allah or the daughters of Allah. You are the creation of the blue-eyed enemy of your fathers. Make him a messenger to the children of Israel. I have come to you with a sign from your Lord. What is the sign? That I will determine for you out of dust the form of a bird. I will breathe into it, and it will become a bird by Allah's permission. Look at that. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to us, we were like dust. Nothing. And that man formed us by the permission of Allah. He made us. A bird only means he makes you able to get on wings and fly above the conditions that formerly held you and inclined you to the earth. He makes you able to understand the finer messages. Like a bird has a finer characteristic than a beast. He rises you up above your savage people. And you fly up above. And when your people look at you who met the messenger, they have to look up. Nobody looked down on a follower of Elijah Muhammad that had sense. You had to look up to find us. We were flying above the head of the black man and woman of America. I heal the blind and the leprous, and I bring the dead to life with Allah's permission. We were blind before we heard the truth. We were deaf and we were diseased. We were mentally dead. But when we heard the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he stood us upright by Allah's permission. He didn't do it on his own power, but he did it by the power of Allah. He said, I inform you of what you should eat and what you should store in your houses. You never had a teacher to teach you what to eat. You ate anything you saw your master eating. Frogs and snails and rattlesnakes and chocolate-covered ants, calling it a delicacy. Fool. You just crazy. The white man say, make mine rare. Here you come. Make mine rare. Let me see the blood running out of it. But Elijah Muhammad taught us what to eat. And he taught us what we should store in our houses. Surely there is a sign in this for you if you are believers. Since Elijah Muhammad, nobody has been able to raise you up except they come in his name. Nobody has been able to do nothing with you except you come in the name of Elijah Muhammad. Can no Orthodox Muslim raise you up? Nowhere. He don't know how to teach you. He doesn't know how to reach you. And even you that have gone in that direction, where is your power among black people to raise them up? You don't have any power unless you come in the name of the man that you rejected and walked away from. Y'all all right? Bear with me, please. This Messiah person, remember the one that J. Edgar Hoover was looking for? Don't forget him now. This cracker may be dead, but his work is going on strong. I am a verifier of that which is before me, of the Torah. And I allow you part of that which was forbidden to you. And I've come to you with a sign from your Lord. So keep your duty to Allah and obey me. Surely Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so serve him. This is the right path. But when Jesus perceived disbelief on their part, he said, who will be my helpers in Allah's way? And the disciples said, we are Allah's helpers. We believe in Allah and bear thou witness that we are submitting ones. Listen now. The other night, I woke up. About 3 in the morning. And these words looked like they had grown to be block letters in my brain. They were from the Quran. I knew they were from the Quran. And those words were, and the Jews planned. I knew the rest, but I was focused on, and the Jews planned. Lord, I wish this was on radio all over America. Now, every Muslim who followed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know that the FBI would visit us. The FBI would try to frighten us away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. What was Elijah Muhammad doing or teaching us that they were afraid of? Some Arab scholars or Muslims were very upset because Elijah Muhammad said he was a messenger. And then they were upset because he called the white man the devil. Well, I don't know what the hell he is. If he's not a devil, tell me what is he? How did you get in the hell that you're in? Many of the Arabs that didn't like it felt that it was directed against them. Why? They got a guilty conscience or something? If you throw a brick among some dogs, no dog hollers but the one that gets hit. If the shoe don't fit, don't wear it. Brother Ali Baghdadi is here today, and he was on the rostrum with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when he made his last sermon, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pointed to him and pointed to our brother from Turkey and said, they are our Muslim brothers. He was not referring to their light skin as that of devil, but he knew the European mind. He knew the nature of this people. Wait now. And the Jews planned. This is the Maulana Muhammad Ali translation. If you go to the Yusuf Ali translation, it says, and the unbelievers planned. You mean a man that can wake black folk up and make something out of you should be planned against? Well, who would plan against a righteous work but a wicked human being? And what would you call a person that put you in this condition, and then when someone came to take you out of it, planned against that man and against you? What would you call them? Saints? Come on. Say it loud. Say it again. Look at your condition. Nobody wants us. And we don't want ourselves. If a man is coming to take us out of this condition, and somebody plans against that man, I don't care what the color is, that's the devil. Okay. Now, why did that come up in my brain? And the Jews planned. When we look, dear Muslims, followers of Imam Warithuddin Muhammad and followers of Elijah Muhammad and followers of Islam, period, white folk, the government feared Islam's rise among our people. They just don't want Muslims. Any kind of Muslim is dangerous. If you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, you're dangerous. Because if you really mean that there is no God but Allah, and you will only bow down to him, then that means you ain't bound down to the president. You're not bound down to no king, no ruler. You don't recognize no power but the power of God. You're a dangerous man in America, brother. If you say, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and you fear nothing or no one but him, you're dangerous. Because if he can't frighten you with jail, if he can't bribe you with money, if he can't turn you against one another, you're dangerous. Islam will make you like that. If you believe in Islam and follow the Quran, you will be made into that kind of human being. So they don't care what kind of Muslim you are. Muslim is dangerous. So that man Nixon, you remember the former president? He said, communism is not our worst enemy. Nixon said, fundamentalist Islam is our worst enemy. Now listen, for God's sake, reason. If Islam, he thinks, is his worst enemy, and Islam is that kind of simple, beautiful message that causes us to obey God and God alone, and to worship none but him, and to fear none but him, and to love and want for your brother what you love and want for yourself. If they felt that this was going to come to black people and clean us up from drugs and alcohol and illicit sex and civilize us, they said we got to stop Islam. Because if Islam gets among these Negroes, they'll not only unite, but they'll unite with power. Since the Nation of Islam, under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was the most organized, disciplined group of black people ever to appear among us, we then were the number one threat. But you've got to recognize that in the 60s, there were many great leaders. Let me just name a few. There was Martin Luther King Jr., there was Whitney Young, there was Roy Wilkins, there was James Foreman, James Farmer, there was Roy Innes, there was Stokely Carmichael, of course his name now is Kwame Ture. There was H. Rap Brown, whose name now is Jamil El-Amin. There was Huey Newton. There was Eldridge Cleaver. I mean, just a whole host of great names. And when Hoover started figuring, he figured them all. And there was Malcolm X. And J. Edgar Hoover said, well, Elijah Muhammad, we better put him off to the side over here, because he's up in age now. He's strong. He's a stern leader. He's disciplined. He's smart. God, he's smart. We can't trap the old man, but maybe he got some followers that if we wait until he die, ain't no sense in killing him. But if we can wait till he die, if he don't die quick enough, we'll try to hasten it. But the Messiah that we look like we're looking at is Malcolm, Martin, Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad. J. Edgar Hoover zeroed in on those four. Now, what was J. Edgar doing? J. Edgar was clearing the deck. He went to work. Whitney Young died off the coast of Africa under very strange circumstances. Roy Wilkins, of course, he never thought he was the Messiah. But still they couldn't trust him because he was waking up too. They didn't think Thurgood Marshall was any Messiah, but they didn't trust him. So they made him a judge. Well, it's the truth. Are you all right? Would you give me just a few more minutes? Anyway, my brothers and sisters, he worked to get young Huey Newton and Maulana Karenga and the nationalist forces fighting each other. And he erased them. He got in among the Panther organization, broke it up. Gone. Check it out. He created the division by exploiting negative situations inside the nation. He put Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at odds with each other. Malcolm leaves the movement and blasts his teacher and is killed. The enemy said, we got him now. The enemy blamed the nation of Islam for the death of Malcolm X. Then in '68, in February, Martin Luther King Jr. and Elijah Muhammad meet. They shake hands. They sit together. 2 months later, Martin Luther King is dead. 100 cities explode, and they begin naming streets and boulevards after Martin Luther King to quiet down the restless slaves. Then they take Dr. King and twist his philosophy and give him to you as the ultimate teacher of dreams. Kwame Ture left America, went to Africa. Now, in 1975, Elijah Muhammad sick, and the Jews planned. And the unbelievers planned. And J. Edgar Hoover planned. And their plan was to drag the Muslims into probate court to fight over the property. They planned for a leader to emerge that would take the nation away from a nationalistic idea of building an independent nation, focusing on self-improvement without self-improvement toward a national identity. Are you listening? They located among Elijah Muhammad's ministers those who would be pretenders or contenders for his seat. And they planned that after he was, quote unquote, dead and gone, a fight would break out over who would be the real heir to Elijah Muhammad's work. They felt that this would tear the nation up. And the Jews planned. But the Quran does not stop there. It said, and Allah also planned. And the Quran says, and Allah is the best of planners. In the footnote, they say that the word, the root word, Arabic word here for plan, is that he exercised craft, cunning, art, or skill in the management or ordering of affairs with excellent consideration or deliberation. It was a tremendous plan. And they worked the plan. Didn't they work it? And many of us fell victim to the plan. Come on. And the Jews planned. Boy, that's wonderful. And then there's a period, mark. I've never seen a sentence open with a conjunction. And Allah is, see, the best of planners. So they put a period to what they thought was the Nation of Islam, but there was a conjunction there that they missed. And Allah is the best of planners. They put the nation to sleep, to death. And the Jews said in another surah, we killed the Messiah. But Allah said, and they did not. And they did not. Well, what happened? He was made to appear dead. He was made to appear dead. How do you know this? The white man went back to Washington rejoicing. Oh, it's all over, they said. We got the nation, honey. The nation is dead. The nation is gone. The nation will never rise again. And we killed the Messiah. Period. But then the next sentence says, and Allah is the best of planners. Unknown to others. Elijah Muhammad had made preparation for the period and had set in motion the conjunction. For not only could the Jews plan, but God and the messenger planned also. And everything that has happened to the Nation of Islam was a part of a plan bigger than Imam Warithuddin, bigger than Louis Farrakhan, bigger than Elijah Muhammad. It is the Nation of Islam. God is at the root of this. listen. I'm almost finished. Now look, when the nation fell, tell the truth, weren't we all disappointed? Weren't we all hurt? Today in this house, there are members of the family of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, beloved Muslims who suffered much, willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or unknowingly. They suffered to lay the foundation upon which all of us are standing today. But when this was no more, the mosque closed, school closed, bank gone, farms gone, airplane gone, airplanes gone, trucks gone, buses gone, newspaper gone, plant gone, property in foreign countries gone, everything gone, and we gone. That's right. We just said, oh Lord, if this is what I gave my life to, and this is the way it turns out, I'm through. I'll never follow a man again as long as I live. I'm through following men. I'll never follow another man. Ain't no man gonna tell me nothing, cause man ain't worth nothing, and I'm through with men. I'll never follow man, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah, and blah blah blah, blah blah blah. But wait a minute, did God ever send you anything other than a man? And whenever he sent you a man, did you ever think that because you followed a man that he would not try you? Look in the Quran where it says in the 29th surah, and did you think you would be left alone on saying we believe and will not be tried while others were tried before you? This is so that Allah may know those of you who are truthful and those of you who are liars. Wait a minute. This is talking about a God that don't know, and he got to wait to find out who is truthful? Oh, stop. Allah know who the liar is and who the truthful is before they're born. Allah said he created you in the womb. And one of you is a believer and one is a disbeliever. If he knew you in the womb, he don't have to wait till you're tried to find out which one is a liar. But Allah in you, you gotta know who and what you are and what I am. How are you gonna know what you are unless you're tried? How many of you thought I would never leave Elijah? I will always stand up. Listen to your words. Go back and hear yourself. I will always be with Allah. I will never turn back. But when the trial came, we were shown up to be liars. And the world saw us as liars. A man that opened our eyes, made us hear, made us speak, gave us life, and made the world respect us. When he was no longer among us, we said to hell with him. Pull down his picture. And do men think we will be left alone on saying we believe? We had to be tried. And now each one of us know what we are. And if you know and you're alive, you can get it right. Louis Farrakhan, a man something like Peter, always in the forefront talking about my teacher. But when the trial came, I denied him. I thought I was sincere. I thought I really loved him. But in the hour of trial, I was shown up to be less than what I thought I was. Now, you can put a good face on it, and I can put a good face on it, but for practical reasons, I don't want to put a face on it. I want to say it like it is. Because, see, the man, Elijah Muhammad, knew me better than I knew myself, and knew most of you better than you know yourself, and told you things about yourself that if you would go back and reflect, he knew what you were going to do before you did it. The man was too tough. I made a speech in 1967 before 500 preachers in Boston University in Massachusetts. And when I made that speech before those preachers, I mean, those men shouted, jumped up and down. I sent the tape to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he wrote me a letter saying these words. He said, "Dear Brother Farrakhan, that was one of the greatest speeches that you could have given to my worst enemies. Because the preachers have always been the enemy of the prophets. It's not that they're bad, they're always wrapped up in the power that rules and governs the present world circumstance." He said, for that one speech, I didn't have to make no more. He said, for that one speech, I will pray to my Allah that if you ever turn hypocrite on me, that He, Allah, will go after you and bring you back. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Look, brother and sister, the man's prayer saved me. That's why the Christians can say, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound to save a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see." The prayer of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I believe, is what saved me. For he told me in another meeting, he said, "Brother, the devil desires you that he may sift you as wheat." Now those words come right up out of the scripture. The following words are, "But I have prayed for you, that after your faith returns to you, go and strengthen your brethren." See? I, Louis Farrakhan, fulfilled it. But I didn't know that my love for him was going to lead me down a path that would make me the #1 enemy of the government of the United States of America. I did not know that when I said I'm going to stand up for him and rebuild his work, I didn't know that I would be the witness that he is the Messiah. I didn't know that God would bless me so, that the government would not be able to sleep night or day until they got me. The government would not be able to sleep night or day until they got me. I didn't know. But I stood up like you sing the song, stand up for Jesus, you soldiers of the cross. See, I didn't know what that Christian song meant. Must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free? Baby, I'm sorry. It said no, there's a cross for everyone. And there's a cross for me. All right, now the conclusion. And the Jews planned. I'm through now. I want you to hear the conclusion. And the Jews planned. They thought they had killed the Messiah. Brothers and sisters, the Nation of Islam is that messianic force that has awakened all black America. And when it died, all black America felt the loss of the Nation of Islam. And the government rejoiced. Let's go to the New Testament. And I think it was Martha and Mary. They came to Jesus and said, Jesus, the one whom you love is dead. Lazarus is dead. But Jesus said, no, he's not dead. He's asleep. He said, take me where Lazarus is. And Jesus said to her, your brother shall rise again. Then he said, for I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live, and whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? And the woman said, yes. Take me to where he is. Where have you laid him? They said unto him, Lord, come and see. And the shortest sentence in the Bible, Jesus wept. He didn't weep over himself. He wept over what he loved that had died, but really was not dead. It was made to appear dead. Jesus went to the tomb and said, take away the stone. And he called it, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound with a cloth. And Jesus said unto them, loose him and let him go. The prayer of Elijah Muhammad for my life that God would go after me and bring me back. God didn't come himself, but God was traveling in a brother of mine. And he came to me, and he didn't say, Lazarus, come forth. He just gave me that which would make me get up and come forth. I had on my grave clothes, meaning I was dressed like Negroes. Something like you. My hair was long, and I was fat. Still had a warm smile, but I was messed up. But I wanted to come out of that tomb. I wanted to stand up for Elijah. But when he called me, I came forward. Loose him, let him go. Now I'm standing up. And a nation is in a tomb that the white man thought he had killed, but Allah is the best of planners. And then I, following my Lord's instruction, go and strengthen your brethren. I came to your grave, and I called you, and you came forth with your grave clothes on. I met you drunkards, thieves and hustlers, pimps and lowlifes. But as I was raised, I called you and raised you up that you may be my witness that I am his servant, that I am not doing anything on my own power, but what I do it in the name of Allah and in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I have no power on my own, but I didn't know that God made J. Edgar Hoover clear the deck. Only leaving one other man, the great Reverend Jesse Jackson. The two of us are the only national voices for the hurt of our people that are left. All the rest have gone to hell. All the rest have sold out. All the rest have been bought out. And now they got Reverend Jackson. Listen to me. I don't mean to bust up the house, but they got Reverend Jackson. He's in the fisherman's net right now. One of the most brilliant among us. But he wants nearness to white people. He wants a reward from them so they can shut his mouth. They can tell him, don't walk with your brother Farrakhan. So the government says, ain't nobody left now but Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam as his witness that he is the one that Elijah Muhammad wanted to lead the way. Nobody left now. Nobody left. So I have become public enemy number one. Listen. And the Jews planned. When I stood with Reverend Jackson, they said, "Who is this nigga?" Never have we heard a man speak like that against us. Who is this nigga? And the more they struck me, the more I struck back with the truth. And the more I struck back with the truth, the more it struck terror in their heart, for now they were clear. Oh, Lord, this is the one that is the witness of the Messiah, a little one himself. And the Jews planned. Because I, in repeating the work of Elijah Muhammad, standing up for the word of Elijah Muhammad, am getting the same results as my teacher got. And that's what's frightening white people. And so now they have declared they will stop at nothing till they destroy Louis Farrakhan. And I'm just saying this to you as I leave you. This could be our finest hour. That's right. That's right. If we stand up. But if we don't, all of you are sentenced to the fire of hell. I didn't say some of you. I'm going to say it again. All. God is independent. He took one from the beginning and made from that one all that you see. He can do it again. Are you listening? Yes, sir. The enemy is getting rid of leader after leader after leader on a local level, so that those leaders will never be able to rally their people when they make the big move. Judges being wiped out. Politicians being wiped out by the government. Did you hear me? Harold Washington was a man that the government hated because they didn't want a black man over this great city with $50 billion. What the city controls, a black man sitting up over it. They didn't want that. So the FBI again sent moles in. You know what a mole is? An undercover stoolie. And you know what they do? They always wait till they get one of you trapped in their law. Then they say, let's make a deal. You give me this one, I'll let you walk or give you less time. Do you follow me? One of Kwame Toure's top aides, Bob Brown, Bob Brown is doing 7 years in jail. Do you know what his crime was? Using a phony phone card, making several calls. Never has been arrested in his life, now doing 7 years. Have you heard of the Conference of Black Lawyers, Dr. Charles Knox? Do you know why Charles Knox is in jail? He went south to see Jeff Fort. He's a man that is a Juris Doctor, meaning he has passed the requirements to be a lawyer but has not yet passed the bar. He went to see Jeff Fort and used a phony card that said he was a lawyer. And on the basis of that card alone, he's doing 3 years in jail. Doing 5, but he may get out in 3. The Alderman Davis, Wallace Davis, over, I think it was about $1,500 in campaign funds. That's his viewpoint. They said a bribe from their viewpoint. He's doing 8 years. Judge Alcee Hastings in Florida beat the FBI charge in a court. Now they're trying him in the Congress. Reginald Eves in Georgia, a Fulton County commissioner, he's in prison today. They're working on Tom Bradley. They arrested the mayor of Atlantic City. They are moving on black leaders. For what? They're getting ready to make a move on the black community. And they don't want no voice but the voice that will say amen to what they do. They have just moved a black man, Colin Powell, as the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I told you that it was going to happen to justify what they're about to do. It's in place now. You all right? It's over now. And now, the FBI, who for years has been going around trying to get Muslims who fell victim to the law to say that Farrakhan told them to do it. They think now they have their case prepared, and the Jews plan. Bush himself, the president, went to the Jews in Los Angeles and promised them, pledged to them, that he would do everything in his power through the Justice Department to get the anti-Semites, whether they wear brown shirts or white shirts and bow ties. Here's the president promising the Jews he's going to get Farrakhan. And the Jews planned. Well, They have to move quickly now, because it's written in the Bible, when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, they said, we have got to kill both Lazarus and Jesus. Because if we don't, the whole world, or all the people, will go after them, will believe in them. And I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that there's not a black person of note that has sat in my presence that does not go away saying he's not the man that they would have us believe he is. And because they see us winning the propaganda war, it's written right in the book. They called a council and said, what is wrong? Nothing that we're doing is prevailing over Jesus and Lazarus. They will never be able to put me in their hands unless one of you, who claim to be my friend, unless one of you betray me into their hands, they cannot touch me. But if they touch me, then Allah will move swiftly woe unto America, woe unto the government of the United States of America, for what you plan against me, you have planned it against yourselves. And so the chief priests found one among the disciples of Jesus who was angry with Jesus. And prevailed upon him for a small pittance to betray his teacher into the hands of the devils. And when they laid their hands on him, he was ready for them, because it was written it had to be so. And the Jews plan. They have an elaborate plan, brothers and sisters. And you'll be surprised who they're using. I feel sorry for anyone who will submit to the devil to be used against me. For the scripture says it would be better that you had never been born. It would be better that you had a millstone around your neck dropped into the bottom of the sea. This blue-eyed beast will never, by the help of Allah, destroy the nation. Never again, never again, never again. Allahu Akbar. praise is due to Allah. Please, would you be seated? Those of you who are listening via hookup around the country, don't leave just yet, please. I think that the enemy knows or does not know what he will unleash. But I want you to know that as I stand here today, they're moving. Yeah. I will tell you more in weeks to come. But they are moving swiftly toward their destruction. I say this for all of you who don't think that Allah is real. Watch and see. We will be the winner.